It's summertime and we're spending more time outdoors, but there's one plant we want to be cautious of, and that's poison ivy. It is a plant that is native all across North America, and that includes all across Oklahoma as well. It is a very vigorous and adaptable plant, which means you can find it in a lot of different locations. Now, it tends to kind of live on the edge of the forest, but you can find it in full sun, and as you see here, you can find it in really deep shade as well. It's also very adaptable in its growth habit. So a lot of times it will present as a smaller shrub, but what we have here is a nice sized vine that's growing up into the tree. So it's easy to distinguish it as it's growing as a vine here. Now, its telltale signature is those 3 leaves. However, there are other plants, and we're going to get into that here in a minute, that also have 3 leaves that maybe look similar but are completely harmless. Now, the thing about poison ivy is that it contains a chemical, an oil that is poisonous called urushiol. And that poisonous chemical is throughout the plant. So we're talking about the roots, the stems, the leaves, and even when it's dormant and there's no leaves present, it still has that. So if it gets bruised or anything like that, it can cause some major skin irritations. Now, it's also found in poison oak and poison sumac. Now, the good thing is we do not have poison sumac in Oklahoma. So when you see those sumac clumps growing along the roadsides, that is not poison sumac that we're dealing with. Now, this particular vine, you can see it's growing with some very vigorous aerial adventitious roots that have helped it cling to the tree, and it's doing that so that it can get some more sunlight up above. And it's pretty a healthy specimen that we have here. You can see that there are some berries on there, and later those berries will turn white, which is one of the ways that it spreads. So it will spread through underground rhizomes and roots that will kind of allow it to pop up in different places. But the berries are food for birds, and so that's how it can also travel long distance and all of a sudden appear in places that maybe you've never seen it before. So be careful of poison ivy. It can last and persist on clothes for long periods of time. Oftentimes you might have a dog that runs through poison ivy and breaks some of that vegetation and gets on the fur, and then you go to pet your dog and you might be exposed that way. So it might not be a direct contact, but it can still actually irritate your skin through those secondary contacts. So you want to be careful with that. Now, a couple of other plants that we have here that are poison ivy look-alikes. This first one is the box elder. Now, this is a pretty prolific seeding tree, and as you can see, it's in the maple family by these seeds. So you can see I can touch this and it is not going to cause any problems for me. However, if you look at the leaves, it has those leaves of 3, especially when it's younger. So when it does get older, you'll see that it actually has 5 leaflets on it, I should say. Until it gets a little bit mature and develops those 5 leaflets, you're going to see these 3 leaflets and you might think that it's poison ivy. So while the leaves can be highly variable between the box elder and the poison ivy, and they can somewhat look similar, one of the best ways to tell the difference between those two is the actual stem arrangement. And so if we're looking here at where it meets the stems, box elders always have opposite stem arrangement or leaf arrangement. So that means the buds are coming out of the main stem opposite each other all the way up. Now, in this form, it can be a large tree, but again, it's those seedlings that are often suspicious as being poison ivy when they're completely harmless. Another plant that we often see out in the wild is Virginia creeper, and we have some of that here too. So the big telltale on it is that it actually has 5 leaflets rather than 3 like poison ivy. So this is one that's often seen growing up into trees out in the wild. Again, it will turn bright red in the fall. It's actually a beautiful vine, native plant, but 5 leaves, so it is not poison ivy. And then finally, another plant that you might see either out in nature or in the landscape is fragrant sumac. So this actually is a native plant out in the native areas. It can get 6 to 8 feet tall. It does also have that 3 leaflet compound leaf, as you can see here, but it tends to have a little bit smaller leaf, and it's a little bit rounder on the edges or the margins of that leaf. You can see it's got some catkins that are starting to develop. It's very fragrant, actually. Another name for it is fragrant sumac or skunk bush. But this plant is also a great native plant to add to your garden. There is actually a cultivar called Grow Low that will stay relatively smaller, about 2 to 3 feet tall. And so it may be one that you think, is that poison ivy? But it is not. So once you've identified the proper plant as poison ivy, how do we get rid of it? Well, if it's just a small little patch or a new plant that's coming up that you've discovered, one of the best ways to get rid of it is just by hand pulling it. Now, before you go hand pull it, you want to make sure you've got the proper attire on. Obviously, I wouldn't do that with short sleeves on. You want to make sure you have long sleeves, long pants, boots on, and that you don't have any exposed skin. You also want to make sure you have some good solid gloves on. You're then going to get a plastic bag and essentially do the dog poop pickup method, where you put your hand on the outside of the bag and kind of pull the plant, and then quickly wrap it up and tie that bag so that you have not touched it at all. That's a really good way to get rid of a small patch. But for something like this, what you're going to do is cut that vine just slightly, and then you can either apply glyphosate to the cut ends or Triclopyr. Those are good ways to get rid of that. Obviously, we have it growing on a tree here that we are going to try not to harm that tree, but that's one way to remove a larger area, is with Triclopyr or glyphosate. So we want you guys to have a safe summer and make sure you have your plants properly identified. We hope you enjoyed this video as part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on the OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.